Hello, friends. Imagine walking home from the sea with nothing more than an old vase, only to discover that it holds a mysterious girl who can grant three wishes. Sounds like a dream, right? But for Chris, this strange miracle becomes something far more emotional than magical. Burdened by guilt, haunted by his brother's death, and unable to move on from the pain in his life, Chris suddenly finds himself face to face with Ruhi, a beautiful spirit who slowly changes everything around him. What begins as curiosity soon turns into love, regret, and a heartbreaking choice that could change both of their lives forever. So get ready for a story filled with magic, emotions, and unexpected twists. Let's begin. This story begins with a boy named Chris, who is walking along the beach with his pet Sammy. Chris lives near the shore, so he comes here every day for a walk. He used to be a singer, but lately he has stopped singing altogether. After walking for a while, Chris sits down in one place, eats his food, and also feeds Sammy. Just as he begins to rest, he feels that someone is drowning in the sea. He quickly runs toward the lifeguard house because he does not know how to swim well. But the lifeguard house is in poor condition, and no one is inside. Chris picks up a broken piece of wood from the house and heads toward the sea on his own. A nearby lifeguard named Bevan sees Chris in the water. Chris cannot actually see anyone drowning, and now he realizes that he may have mistaken the situation and put himself in danger instead. He begins to drown, spots a vase in the water, and then Bevan reaches him just in time. Chris is pulled out of the water, and his life is saved. These two are friends and often visit each other's homes. After a while, Chris comes home carrying the vase. He places it on the table and begins doing his household chores. Chris lives alone in the house. After finishing his work, he rests for a while. At night, he rides his bike to a nearby bar. He drinks there every day. As soon as Chris starts drinking, a man named Kraus comes to him. Kraus is the owner of a music company and wants Chris to sing again for his label. He even tries to tempt him with money, but Chris flatly refuses. In truth, last month Chris had a serious argument with his younger brother Jimmy. Jimmy also wanted to sing and had asked Chris to help him, but Chris refused. Jimmy left the house in anger, had an accident on the way, and died. From that day on, Chris stopped singing. He believes that if he had helped Jimmy, the accident might never have happened. This guilt sits heavily on his heart and makes him avoid music, success, and even the people who still believe in him. Back at home, Chris starts cleaning the vase. As he rubs it, a strong wind suddenly rises around the house. The vase begins to shine, and Chris is terrified. Soon a beautiful girl emerges from the vase. Chris is stunned. The girl tells him that her name is Ruhi and that she is now bound to him. She changes into one of Chris's shirts, and Chris nervously steps back. Ruhi explains that she will fulfill his three wishes. Chris does not believe her at first, so he jokingly says that he wants to see rain right now. Ruhi uses her magic, and at once it begins to rain heavily. It rarely rains where Chris lives, so he is shocked. The rain becomes so strong that water starts leaking through the roof. Ruhi is pleased because she has fulfilled his first wish and hopes to become free by finishing the remaining wishes quickly. For Chris, however, the moment feels less like a blessing and more like the beginning of another impossible problem. After the rain stops, Ruhi asks Chris for his second wish, but Chris says he has no wishes and tells her to leave. Ruhi explains that she can only leave after fulfilling all three wishes. Since Chris refuses to make another wish, Ruhi decides to stay with him until he does. The next day, Chris stands outside his house while Ruhi looks through his clothes to find something that fits her. When Chris comes in, she again asks him to tell her remaining wishes. This time, Chris tells her about his brother's death. He says that when his brother died, both his desires died with him. That night, Chris takes Ruhi to the same bar he often visits. Bevan is also there. Chris introduces Ruhi to Bevan. They all drink too much, and when Chris and Ruhi return home, their growing closeness becomes obvious. The next day, they spend time together near a lake and slowly become more comfortable in each other's company. Little by little, Chris begins smiling again, even though he is still trying not to admit what Ruhi's presence means to him. A girl named Liz appears the following day. Liz is a close friend of Chris and also wants him to sing again. She visits because she hopes she can convince him to return to music. Life goes on, and Ruhi continues doing household chores while Chris sleeps late into the morning. They have now been living together for several days. One night, Ruhi tells Chris that she loves him very much. Chris says nothing. Ruhi asks if he loves her too. Chris hesitates, stands up, and then says something that deeply hurts her. Ruhi becomes very sad and asks Chris to tell her the remaining two wishes so that she can fulfill them and leave his life forever. Even though he clearly cares about her, fear, guilt, and uncertainty keep him from speaking honestly. Chris still refuses to tell her any wish, and Ruhi grows angry. After some time, Ruhi gets ready to go out with Chris's friend Bevan. She calls him, and soon the two leave together. They go to the bar and begin drinking, while Chris stays home, drinking alone. After Ruhi leaves, Chris realizes that he cannot live without her. Meanwhile, Liz comes to see him and talk about singing again. While they drink coffee, Chris tells Liz the truth about Ruhi, that she came out of the vase and that he loves her very much. He says he is going to find her. After telling Liz everything, Chris leaves. For the first time since Jimmy's death, he sounds certain about what he wants and ready to fight for it. A little later, Chris finds Ruhi and asks her to come home, but Ruhi refuses. She tells him that he does not love her, so she will not listen to him. Ruhi is furious with Chris. Chris wants to take her home and finally confess his feelings, but Ruhi believes he is only there to use his remaining wishes. She demands that he say them right there and then leave. In anger, Chris blurts out that his second wish is to have an ordinary girl in his life. Ruhi says that he will soon find such a girl. Then Chris says his third wish, that Ruhi should go back forever to wherever she came from. The words come from frustration, but once they are spoken, neither of them can take them back. As soon as Chris makes that final wish, Ruhi's condition begins to weaken. Chris somehow manages to take care of her and brings her home. Ruhi's strength is fading because the magic is forcing her to return, yet she does not have the flower offering she needs to complete the passage. She has now fulfilled all three of Chris's wishes. Chris soon learns that Liz has taken the vase. He rushes to Liz's house, but she is not there. Liz is by the sea at that very moment. The next day, Liz realizes she acted out of greed and made a terrible mistake. She returns the vase to Chris. Chris then takes Ruhi to the seashore, and soon Ruhi steps back into the vase. Chris is left helpless, watching the one person who brought light back into his life disappear in front of him. The next morning, Chris is still on the beach. After Ruhi's departure, he is so heartbroken that he falls asleep there overnight. When he wakes up, he sees a girl walking on the beach. She comes to him and gently asks whether he is all right. The girl looks exactly like Ruhi, and Chris is astonished. But soon he understands that Ruhi had also fulfilled his second wish. His second wish had been to find an ordinary girl, and now that wish has come true in an unexpected way. Throughout the story, we are shown that when people become disappointed with life, their desires begin to die. Chris had also become disappointed with his life, so he believed he had no wishes left. Yet by the end, he learns that deep inside, hope was still alive. In losing Ruhi, he finally understands both the value of love and the weight of careless words. With that, the story comes to an end. Thank you very much for watching our video. If you enjoy stories like this, please subscribe to the channel. Until the next video, take care. Chris's journey reminds us that grief can bury dreams, but it cannot erase the heart's deepest longing forever. Sometimes people only recognize their true desire after they have almost lost it. And sometimes fate answers in ways that are painful, magical, and unexpected all at once. The vase, the storm, and Ruhi's arrival all force Chris to face the pain he has tried to hide. Instead of running from guilt, he finally begins to understand forgiveness, responsibility, and love. By the closing moments, the beach where the mystery began becomes the place where his life quietly starts again. What seemed like a miracle first felt like a burden, then became a loss, and finally revealed itself as a second chance that he never expected but deeply needed, and began living with real hope once more.